It is good to give thanks to the Lord, to sing praises to your name every hour, to declare your loving kindness in the morning and your faithfulness at night. On the nations of 10th Street, on the loop and on the hall, with the harmonious sound. For you have made me glad, O Lord, of your word. I will triumph and sing of your works. It is good to give thanks and to say praises to your name. It is good to give thanks and to sing praises to your most high. Let's relish in heart let's relish in we give thanks to the Lord for His mercy.
Happy Hanukkah.
Mercy are forever. Give unto the Lord for His mercy are forever. It's good to give thanks to the Lord and to sing praises to your name. To declare your loving kindness in the morning and your faithfulness at night. For you, O Lord, have made me glad of your word. I will triumph in the works It's good to give thanks to sing praises to your name. It's good to give thanks and to sing praises to your name.
Hallelujah.
It's good to give thanks
Praise Jah.
to sing praises to your name. It's good to give thanks and to sing praises. Hey, don't sell your soul for the things of this world. Cause a good much I'll inherit a blessing based upon these words. Don't turn aside from the words of the wise. Cause the fruit shall surely reveal and wickedness will have to hide. We only have one life to live. We only got one life to live. Don't have no fear. Don't have cause the good sun taketh its full shine. There's no burden to bear. Give up nothing else. Learn to maintain your head. Do unto others as you would do unto yourself. Oh, but if God has no words, oh, most high rule and earth. Bless are those who speak the truth, rise our people from the dirt. We only have one life to live. We only got one life to live. Precious, precious are thy name. There's glory, there's no shame. Walk on straight like leaf of green. Things are really as they seem. The system is there. Just to cheat, enslaving the poor with the laws what they keep. It's revealed only right, some doing evil overnight. On the dark day shall erase, show the world a smiling face. Rise, we rise into the dawn, carrying us down. We only got the one life to live. Only got one life to live.
Last year.
Only got the one life to live. Only got the one life to live. Only got the one life to live. Only got the one life to
The Word became flesh and dwelt and tabernacled amongst us. Now,
Yes, sir.
once we complete the seventh of the seven appointments, that completes the season, the time that we have been commanded, right, to observe the seven appointments, where it says 3 times in the year shall all the males of Yisrael, right, appear in the place that Yahweh HaKadosh Baruch Hu Baruch Hashem has set his name. So, according to the history and tradition, this will be Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, the pilgrimage, the 3 times in the year. Alright, so this is basically how the called, chosen, and faithful, the righteous, and this is how Yisrael, how we would pay our bills. This is how we pay for our board down here, right? By keeping those appointments, especially the men, the males, right? Their women, their wives, their families, they could come along if they're able to travel and all as well with them. But we, as the sons of Yisrael, are required, right? To whom more is given, more is required. Now, once we are out of the seventh of the seven moed, an appointment, appointed place, appointed time, appointed space, Once we're out of the seventh, right, then we come into the 5 moons, right, out of season. So roughly around the time of September, October, right, we come into the out season. Then we have these 5 months, these 5 moons. We have the winter months, we have the winter moons, right? Almost like going down into Egypt, the darker part of the year from the heights, and then we come out, right, of this, right, out of the winter moons, right, with the April, May season and the month of Abib, and the 7 appointments in season, the feast of Pesach, Fasika, of Passover being the first. And in that season, we have 3 main appointments, counting those 49 plus 1 days to the harvest feast called Pentecost Day in the New Testament time. And then a couple more months till we get to the 7th month. Then we have the 3 more. So 3 plus 1 plus 3 is the 7. So these we are commanded covenantally. We have a covenant obligation and responsibility to keep. Now, here we're in the out of season. Here we're out of the holy season. So Hanukkah is not commanded. It's not as the 7 appointments are commanded by Yahweh, Yahweh, HaKadosh Baruch Hashem. But we do keep it because of the importance to JAH people and because of the testimony of I ancestors. All right, so sometimes we will say about these 5 winter moons, no feast, no fast. So one will say, what about this fast right here? I mean, this feast right here. We're going to touch on the fast. What about this feast right here? Well, this is a festival. Hanukkah is referred to as the feast, the festival of lights. All right, a feast, festival of lights. Now, to get into those details, the basic teaching on this, according to tradition, is that 1 day's worth of oil lasted for 8 days. In order the big miracle, right, the miracle, right, the amazing thing of Hanukkah is that 1 day's worth of oil, right, was able to last for 8 lights. Right, now, if you recall, if you're familiar with it in HaTorah, I think it's the Torah portion, Behalotika, when you step up, when you light up. It could be either or translated as that from the Hebrew. When you step up, when you go up, literally. Beha elotecha. When you step up, when you go up, when you light the lamps. Because the priest, especially the high priest, was commanded to go into the Mishkan, right, into the tent, into the tabernacle, every day, right, to light the lights, to clean the soot, the soot that, because the menorah is oil, is powered by oil, by shemen, right, oil. Not like today we have the candle light, so forth and so on. We might use that in grace today, use that as an object lesson to teach ourselves and teach our children. We might use candle lights, be careful, fire, of course, right? But to really understand and to understand, right, the true meaning, we have to see things in its original and its true context. In the true context, we're speaking about oil. We're not speaking about wax. Right? But this is not to be overzealous and pharisaical, because some could say, oh, we shouldn't use such and such and such and make it a pharisaical thing, because that's not what has happened, right, later on. Nowadays, most ones, if you get a candle lampstand, we don't call it candlesticks. Translation sometimes referred to it as candlesticks. And the reason why they refer to it as candlesticks is because by the time 1611 came along, it was not oil powered, but the menorah, in principle, what the Torah teaches and speaks to, was powered by oil. So 1 day's worth of oil lasted for 8 days. That's a part of the miracle, the Nisim, the Ha-Nisim, the miracle of Hanukkah. Right, that in the battle, in the war, in the fight against assimilation, to the Graikoi, to the Greeks, right, to the early form of white supremacy, right, that the oil in the menorah lasted 8 times as long as it would ordinarily last. Because war changes a lot of things in war, stops regular business, stops the flow of goods and products and materials. So the tabernacle, the tent, the temple, at that time it was a temple, the stone building, the Beit Mikdash, didn't get the opportunity, to get the new oil for the daily lighting of the lights as commanded in our Torah. But what was immediately observed and recognized was that 1 day's worth of oil lasted for 8 days. Now, there's a modern tradition, and we, the black Jews of the line of the tribe of Judah, right, we don't use the Hanukkah. Others choose to use the Hanukkah. What is the Hanukkah? The Hanukkah is a latter-day, you can say invention, a latter-day. I look at it as an imposition in some sense, because the Hanukkah basically is a nine branch. If you go look up Hanukkah and you go look at the pictures, you'll see a lot of 9 branch. There's a 9 branch menorah. But the 9 branch menorah is nowhere commanded in HaTorah. And if we look at the experience that's recorded in the book of Maccabees and from the tradition of Hanukkah, right, the true teaching of Hanukkah, it was in the Holy Temple. The Holy Temple at that time did not have a Hanukkah. It didn't have a Hanukkah. That 1 day's worth of oil was able to keep lit the menorah with the 7 branches. Well, actually, the 6 branches and the shamesh. The shamesh is the center one. Shamesh in Hebrew is like the word for sun, right? The center one with the 3 branches on this side and the 3 branches on that side. This is why when we look at the lights in man and the 7 seals in man and the chakras, we can see that center one is like the heart, keeping the heart to cold, the heart chakra, and the 3 upper lights and the 3 lower lights to keep those lights lit for 8 days. Right? So from the first day, you can say to the first day. We count from the first day, what's called Sunday, or Ehud Yom HaRishon, and we count 8 days. That brings us to the first day again. So the type of menorah that was used in the holy Haykal, the temple, was the menorah according to Scripture. So it was actually the menorah which was fully lit over those 8 days. The modern tradition among many Yehudim, many Jews, and others, that observe Hanukkah is to light one of the Hanukkah lights 1 day, light a light every day on that level. But in studying, the tribe and the tradition and the scripts and everything, we get to recognize that it is best for us to use what John commanded, what the miracle happened. The miracle happened with the menorah, with our menorah. It did not happen with a Hanukkah. Right? So for I aggregations, I Havarim, this is what is recommended, and that's some of the reasons why. Just to touch on that right there. So here we're in the out season. So Hanukkah is not one of the 7 appointed holy days. It's not even a time like some will observe it different. Yehudi observe it in different ways, but our observance is to study, the scriptures, to study the apocryphal books like Maccabees, and our main focus is on 4th Maccabee. 4th Maccabee. Just to point that out, our main focus is on 4th Maccabee. Let's share this right here as well. So on the first 7 days of Hanukkah, what do? We read of the sacrifices and gifts offered by the first 7 of the Nessim. The Nessim are like the princes or the tribal leaders, right, of the tribes. And then on the 8th day, we read of the offerings of the remaining 5 Nessim, 5 tribal leaders of the 12 tribes of Yisrael from Numbers chapter 7. And then we continue to the next Torah reading and feeding, the manna. We read about Ha'el. Hayim, the power. Ha Elohim, Hailahim, the true good, the true God. The power was commanded to Aaron. Aaron was the first Moshiach, according to the scripture. Aaron was, you could say, the first Christ. Who was the first Christ in the Bible? Well, according to the scripts, it was Aharon. It was Aaron. Aaron was the first anointed. He was the one anointed and his son. So in Aaron and his sons, Banav, in Aaron and his sons, that we get that typology that's followed up in the Greek Hadasha, in the New Testament scriptures, with Christ, Yeshua HaNotzri, Jesus of Nazareth, Yeshua HaMoshiach, being our high priest, and we as his disciples, all chosen and faithful, being that priest, that kingdom of the priesthood. The example and the type is according to Aaron, and sons. Thus, with that understanding and a little more, you can better understand the importance of the epistle to the Hebrews. When speaking to Hebrews, the epistle to the Hebrews was used and is used to make that connection, right, between the Brit Yashana, what's called the Old Testament, and the Brit Chadasha, right, practically, right? So, Hailahim, Ha-Elohim's, his commandment to Aaron was to kindle the menorah in the tabernacle. We find that in the Torah reading and feeding that's known as Be-Ha-Alotika, Be-Ha-Elotika. Right, that particular Torah reading and feeding right there. Let's just go right here just to give ones and ones a point of reference right here. That would be the 36. When you look at the 36 Torah reading and feeding, picking up with Numbers chapter 8. Numbers chapter 8. The ha'alotika, when you step up, when you light up. Maria sitalequis, when you light up. So that right there points to the significance of ha-menorah, the seven, the lampstand. Instead of calling it candlestick, scripturally, the one that's powered by oil is the lamp stand.